Good evening, my dear friends. Always hall appears to be full, and today also it is full by mind, because those who are already present here are coming with a full sense of mind. They wanted to enjoy the today's session. I am sure this is going to be the quality crowd today. I am happy to see you all of you here today. Good evening to all of you, sir. Welcome to today's series of study circle meeting on international taxation. To touch on today's topic, we are going to discuss on the Article 25, 26 and 27. It is dealing with the mutual agreement procedures, exchange of information and assistance in the tax collection. To deal with this subject, we have got a very dynamic personality, highly experienced personality. He is none other than CA Rishi Harlalka. I request Rishi Harlalka to come to the dais, please. Rishi Harlalka, we are welcoming you wholeheartedly for this today's session. As a gesture of welcome, I request Anand Pandit to come forward and present a welcome flower. And also I request Anand Pandit to present a memento. Friends, Rishi Madhur is not a new person for our forum. He is a lawyer and also a chartered accountant. He has secured 35th rank in CA Final, All India. And he worked in KPMG for 6 years and then started his own firm in the name of Rishi Madhur and Company in 2003. And he has done his expertise in the international taxation, income tax, double taxation treaty and treaty shopping and also corporate advisory and tax planning. He has been appearing before the dispute resolution panel and also the income tax appellate tribunal. Currently, he has merged his firm with Grant Thornton, very interesting aspect for all of us. And many congratulations to you for this big event which has happened recently. Friends, he has been a regular faculty in CA Institute and also in the Company Secretaries Institute earlier. He has been presenting papers in publications in the Institute journals and also in the International Association of International Fiscal Association. Currently, he is the Vice President of International Fiscal Association. Friends, he has got a lot of experience and he has also contributed to the book called Digital Commerce, an analysis of taxation aspect and emerging issues. This is published by the IFA. And he has also contributed for the tax magazines. He has been writing articles on the international taxation in the Taxman's publications. So with this kind of good experience in his baggage, it is our pleasure to have you here, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome him once again with a big round of applause. Sir, we are very eager to hear to you, sir. Over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. Thank you for that very glowing introduction. I will have to live up to it. And I am aware that he mentioned that the topic is such that maybe there would be people who would be only specific kind of people who would be interested here, because it is not something which people view this as a day-to-day kind of a thing in their practice area. But let me assure you, I have presented on these topics earlier and I had the good fortune of presenting this to a full packed audience in Chennai for an entire day. We were did not have enough time to resolve all the deliberations and all the issues which came up. So at least the mutual agreement procedure and the exchange of information, I think, are very, very important topics. Even if we do not practice in them very actively, it's important for us to understand how the treaty mechanisms work. as far as the mutual agreement procedure is concerned. And as far as exchange of information is concerned, I think that's the most topical topic today. All this talk about black money and the DTA with Mauritius and the Switzerland, all this is going to happen through the exchange of information article. So we need to understand, as people who want to understand international tax, it's at least important for us to understand how the article works, what is the framework of the article, and how do governments actually exchange information under this article, ultimately leading to some kind of unearthing of the black money. So in that sense, it is a very, very important piece of article which people tend to undervalue or underestimate their importance. So my task here on this lovely Bangalore Saturday evening weather is to make it as interesting as possible. And as Shriram has so kindly said that thank you, you've all come with a full mind. My idea will be to do some justice to that, and I hope that I can keep you engaged for the time of my presentation. So with that, let me just start. I'll cover mutual agreement procedure. So mutual agreement procedure is towards the end of the treaty, you will generally see some of these articles, and as I said, that there is sometimes a sense that these are all just machinery provisions, these are all just theoretical, that these are not very used in a very frequent sense of term. So well friends, let me assure you that the mutual agreement procedure is a very, very alive and a kicking procedure in most of the developed countries. There are large law firms in US, UK, Germany, South Africa who do this as a very specialized piece of work with their clients, because this typically involves a government to government level interaction, and this is probably the only place in treaty where we keep on saying that the treaty is a piece of instrument entered into by two governments or two states, but when you apply treaty, you generally apply it with respect to only a taxpayer. You go in the treaty, you will determine the residential status, you will determine the characterization, you will determine where the income needs to be taxed. So its application seems to be very private, right? But we keep on hearing about the treaty that it's an agreement between two governments. So under mutual agreement procedure, you get the first flavor of it being a government to government level of interaction, because this is a dispute resolution mechanism between the two competent authorities who have entered into the treaty. So the entire legal work which goes into supporting something like this is a huge amount of work. Lawyers typically charge a lot for assisting clients and companies in doing their MAP application. I've had the good fortune of being involved in one of those practical MAP processes. Of course, it takes a longer time. I was there for some part of it, but it gives us a good sense. And my think is going forward, with ABS coming and this MAP, we're going to see an increasing use of MAP, say in the next 10 years. Of our, the way the law is emerging, the way the number of issues are coming up, the way the number of foreign companies are operating in India. So my sense is that there is going to be a lot of work on MAP, and therefore it becomes a very important topic for us to understand what is this thing about. So with that brief introduction, let me just start. So what I have done is that I have looked at the articles in the OECD commentary, in the OECD Model Convention, the UN Model Convention. By and large, the articles are similar. Wherever the changes are there, I have highlighted it. And instead of giving the entire text, I have kind of tried to paraphrase the article so that we can make it easier for our understanding. So looking at Article 25.1, basically they say that a person may invoke MAP if he considers that the actions of one or both of the contracting states result or will result in taxation not in accordance with the provision of the convention. So here convention means a treaty. So let's just pause and look here. Who may invoke a MAP? MAP will still be invoked by a taxpayer, private citizen. Government or the competent authority themselves directly will not invoke the MAP. So this is the basic framework. Let's understand each element within this. So you have a person may invoke map. Now, if he considers, means it's not that he should arrive at some conclusion based on, or somebody else should come in. It is in his judgment. It is left to his discretion. If he considers, what does he consider? That actions of one or more of the contracting states either results or will result in a taxation which is not envisaged as per the treaty. So if the treaty says that the PEs there you cannot tax before 80 days or 120 days, and then if some state wants to tax the PE, or if somebody the treaty says that fixed price of PE is created only when certain conditions are met, but one of the contracting states is taking the position that even without the conditions being met, the PE should be formed. Any of those kind of divergences, any position taken by the tax authorities of one of the countries, if that position is not in accordance with the taxation rules which are framed under the treaty, then he has the right to invoke MAP. That is the basic trigger point. Now, what does actions of one or more of the contracting state mean? We will see. And that action either results or will result. That means he can invoke MAP even in anticipation. So if you have got some notice and if he's proposing to do some kind of an addition to your income, but he still not passed the assessment order, you can still go and invoke MAP, because it is the action will result in taxation which is not in accordance with the contracting state. So let's look at the basic framework basically. So a private resident can invoke MAP when the position taken by a tax authority is likely to be against the principles in this convention. Now, it is important that the treaty provides a dispute resolution mechanism, because typically what happens is that once the treaty is signed, it's negotiated and it is signed by both the countries, the implementation is left to the individual tax authorities of that country. Now, if one tax authority consistently breaches the treaty and takes a very aggressive position and tries to tax, even though the protection is available under the treaty, then there is no point in having the treaty, because the tax authorities are still doing whatever they want to do. So unless and until a treaty itself does not have an accountability mechanism or a dispute resolution mechanism, the effectiveness of the treaty is reduced. So MAP is the most important part of the treaty, where it keeps the tax authorities on their toes, because they know that if they take a very different position, then the taxpayer can go to his home country, can initiate a MAP, and then the government of that country will then put pressure on the tax authorities here to do a mutual discussion and resolve the issue. So it is a matter of also, it's a check and a balance in the treaty. It is a dispute resolution without which the treaty can be rendered wholly practically irrelevant. So from that point of view also, the MAP is a very good process what we have in the treaty. Now the person could present his case in the home country, right? Or in case of there is non-discrimination, then in the country in which he is a national. But we can just take, for the purpose of our discussion, his home country, his resident country. So if there is a US company who is operating in Bangalore and he's got the tax assessment done in Bangalore, which the tax assessment, the position or the basis on which the assessment is done is not correct, then he can invoke the competent authority of his country. Then his country will then take up the matter with the tax authorities of our country. He cannot invoke the competent authority of our country directly. So he has to go back to his country and then invoke the competent authority. Yes.
This is applicable only for income tax or any tax for that matter?
So this is generally applicable for income tax, because this is subject to your Article 1, which says that this will be only applied to those conventions where the taxes are covered here. So it is generally with relation to income tax. Because they say that taxes, so this can be invoked only when taxation is not in accordance with this convention. Now taxation which is not in accordance with this convention means the convention talks only about income taxes. So therefore he can only take up the income tax issue which comes up. If he takes up an estate duty, excise duty, customs duty, then that is not even covered by the convention. So generally it will happen for income taxes.
Even his law is enacted with a retrospective effect, like our Vodafone, where retrospective effect was given. So in that situation also this can.
So generally what happens is that the law was enacted with retrospective effect is in the domestic law, right? Now you have a position where the treaty can still override the domestic law. Okay, so if you apply the treaty, then it is fine because that is what the courts have done in subsequent decisions, where they have said that even though for Vodafone it is retrospective enactment, if protection under the treaty is available, then the treaty benefit continues, notwithstanding the amendment in the domestic law. So domestic law amendments and domestic law taxation is not covered here. This is only when the taxation is not in accordance with the treaty principles. That means the taxpayer should have relied on some treaty provision, and the tax authorities here would have denied him that treaty protection. Then he would have gone back to his home country and he would have said, this is happening, so you at government to government level, please have a talk. Now I should also tell you that, see, MAP as a process like APAs, it is generally taken up only by large taxpayers in very exceptional cases of high demand cases. It is not that each case of demand people start invoking MAP, because MAP typically is a long-term process. It goes for 3 years, 4 years, and it's a very expensive process, and then having two countries, governments and their officials to meet. So it is not a very easy process. So generally what we see is only the larger taxpayers going for the MAP. That is one thing we need to keep in mind. But where the MAP gets initiated, they have to get initiated as per the principle of the trade. That is very important.
I'm sure you will be covering it probably subsequently, but just in case if you are not covering it, where is it filed by the SEC?
So as I said that he could present his case to the competent authority of his home country. So if it's a US company, they are operating in India, when they got a tax demand, they say that it is not in accordance with the Indo-US DTA. They will file with their competent authority in the US. And in all probability, US will have some rules under the domestic law governing the procedure of filing for that.
He can as well file in India?
No, he has to. So that's why I said the MAP can only be invoked by him in his home country. Then home country will take up the issue at government to government level with the source country, because he will not be expected to coordinate with the government of a foreign country. He can only go back to his own government. That is the main thing that we need to keep in mind. Now another thing is that this case can be given irrespective of the remedies provided by the domestic law. That means this is in addition to all remedies what you have under domestic law. By opting for MAP, if you have to file a CIT appeal, if you have to file ITAT, if you have to file a writ petition in High Court, those remedies are not exhausted. Those still continue. This is an additional remedy provided to the taxpayer in addition to the domestic tax law. There is a time limit which is given that it has to be filed within 3 years from when the first notification has come. So if you look at, if a US company is operating in India, it has to be 3 years from when the US company first knows about the action of the Indian tax authority. So if the Indian tax authority has given a 143.3 assessment order, it will be 3 years from that assessment order. He has a time limit to go back to his country, file an application to his government, and then the government will take up the matter with the Indian government. So 3 years time limit is provided under the OECD UN, but what the OECD has said is that this 3 years is the minimum time. The domestic tax law can provide for a longer time also, but in no case the time limit should be lesser than 3 years. Let's look at Article 25(2). Now, what happens once he files the application? Once he files the application, then the objection of the taxpayer, if it appears to be justified, and the competent authority is itself not able to arrive at a satisfactory solution, then it will endeavour to resolve the case by mutual agreement with the competent authority for state S, which is the foreign country. So what this means is, in our example of a US company operating in India, he gets a 143.3 assessment, he is not happy with it, he considers that that is against the principles of the Indo-US DTA. Within 3 years, he goes back to his government, files an application before his competent authority. Once he files the application before his competent authority, they have to admit the application, which means that they will go through a process of verifying their application, whether what he's saying is right, whether this is some matter which they can really take it up with the India authorities. If it appears to be justified, then the US competent authority shall endeavour to resolve the case with the Indian competent authority. So there is a process of a filtering or a vetting process which happens. It's not that every taxpayer can just go and file something to their government and the government will automatically start the machinery in motion. It is not like that. First they will look at the application, they will review the application, they will just see it's a fit case for invoking MAP, for initiating MAP, because there is a lot of time and effort involved by their own team, by the opposite team. So generally they will look at that vetting process. Sometimes what they will do is they will try to resolve the issue at their level. So when the US taxpayer goes to the US competent authority, if the issue is very small or if it's a very minor deviation, the competent authority itself will speak with the US taxpayer and try to resolve that. But where the issue is such that it cannot be done, then only it will initiate a government to government exchange with the Indian authorities. Now here the operative word is that the competent authority shall endeavour to resolve the case. This is the mandate given by the Article 25. The mandate given is that there should be an endeavour to resolve. The treaty does not say that you have to resolve. There is no compulsion to resolve. Right? But they have to act in good faith and they have to try their best to resolve, because they have to work in the spirit of the cooperation where the treaty is being more implemented properly. If they say that no, I will not even listen. Like Indian tax authorities, if they say okay, let that letter come from the US competent authority, I will not even respond, I will not even listen. That approach is also not correct. And treaty putting a compulsion on the India and the US authorities to necessarily resolve is also not there, because at the end of the day, they are the sovereign nations. If they do not accept a position, then they do not accept a position. But before they reject it finally, the idea is that they should endeavour to resolve. Take the best step forward in the good faith, because this is a dispute resolution mechanism. So you should go with the spirit of resolution. You should not go with the spirit of blocking it out. So that is the mandate given by Article 25. I think that is one thing which you need to understand. Under Article 25, any mutual agreement procedure, the competent authority will endeavour to resolve. That is the operative word. That is the key mandate given under the Article 25. So as I said, such endeavour should be with a view to the avoidance of taxation which is not in accordance with the convention. They should try their best not to violate the terms of the treaty. Once you have reached agreement, then you have to make sure that it is implemented. So once it is reached, then the compulsion is there to necessarily implement it. Now if you have a situation where it would have got resolved and by the time it came for implementation, the domestic time limits under the domestic tax act would have expired, that's okay, that will override. So, if some rectification has to happen in 4 years under 154, but because of this, if it has taken 6 years, then they will still implement it, notwithstanding that 4 years was over under the Income Tax Act. So that is another thing which we need to keep in mind, that once a resolution is reached, then implementation has to happen compulsorily. So what is the nature of MAP? I'll pause here, and some of these things I have discussed, but I will just again explain. So we have looked at Article 25.1 and 25.2. So basic nature of MAP is that it is a state level to state level interaction, as I said, government level to government level. It is the only place, or rather the beginning of this, and the exchange of information and assistance with collection of taxes. These are all provisions which are operating between when one government of the country is talking to another government of the country. That is important for us to understand. But it is initiated by a private taxpayer. So once the government themselves cannot initiate. It has to be initiated by a taxpayer. But once it is initiated by the taxpayer, if your application is admitted, then the process becomes government to government. Then the taxpayer cannot interfere in the process of the resolution. The taxpayer only has to say whether he accepts the resolution or does not accept the resolution. He cannot sit at the negotiating table and become a party to the mutual agreement procedure. That's very important to understand. It will only happen between the two governments. And they are looked at, so they are mandated to solve the problem. If they do not solve it, then the implication is that there is double taxation. So that way the MAP is important, because if the MAP procedure fails, it means the treaty has failed. It means that the entire objective of entering into the treaty has failed, because finally it results in double taxation. As I said, there is a duty to negotiate, but they are not obliged to reach a conclusion. They should endeavor to resolve the dispute.
Is there a choice that the assessee cannot accept the resolution?
Yes.
Then what will you do?
So if the assessee does not accept the resolution, then it's like, okay, it reverts back to as if he had not filed a MAP. So if the domestic tax law, any action was taken against him, that action revives. And then he gets then taxed as per the domestic tax law.
The same answer applies to the withdrawal by the affected person at the later date.
So once you accept it, you cannot withdraw. See, once the decision has been reached between the two governments, it is communicated to the taxpayer. The taxpayer has to either accept it or reject it. Once he has accepted it, then he cannot withdraw.
What I want to know is that after filing the objection, but before issuing the resolution.
Yeah, then he can withdraw the application. That is possible. Yeah. So that is all governed by the rules and the procedures of each country, how they will put in the MAP.
The provisions of the treaty will go over with the domestic laws provisions.
Sorry, can you kindly repeat?
The provisions of the treaty will go over with the provisions of the domestic laws.
Yes.
So the provisions of the treaty will be, overrule the provisions of the domestic laws.
Yes, that is why you are entering into the treaty, and that is why you will have the MAP, because the taxpayer tried to use the treaty, but the tax officer said, I will not give you the protection of treaty, I will go for domestic tax law. Then he says, no, the treaty is there, you have to respect it. Then only he will file the MAP.
So the domestic lawmakers should keep in mind the provisions of the treaty.
Exactly. Because they have signed the treaty as a country, right? Now one government, you can't say that, oh, that earlier government did, I did not do. Because the entire nature of a treaty, it is like any other international treaty. It is like you signing a WTO or a nuclear non-proliferation treaty. This is just a tax treaty. So you have to be able to respect the treaty. Otherwise, your standing in the international community, your credibility will weaken. Because then you will be always known as a country who does not respect their international obligations, and there can be a distinct perception which can result to a decrease in trade and investment within the country. So it all rolls up and maps up into the final credibility. So it is in the country's own interest that once they have signed the treaty, they should be able to respect it. This is also the entire issue which had happened in the Indo-Mauritius Treaty, that they have signed it. At the time they signed it in 1983, they had not expected that so much of FII money will come into Indian stock market. So they had exacted capital gains in the Mauritius Treaty. Now when they started coming and earning the money, the Indian tax authorities started denying them the benefit. And that is where you have Azadi Bachao Andolan, the Supreme Court case, which says, look, just because you lost revenue does not mean that you don't honor your treaty. If you are losing revenue, you go back and renegotiate the treaty. But till the treaty is in force, you have to respect the treaty. Those provisions will override the domestic law. So under the treaty, if there is exemption, you have to honor that exemption. You suddenly cannot say, oh, that was done 20 years back. It cannot happen like that.
Excuse me. Was this treaty revised recently between India and Mauritius?
Yes, the treaty was revised about a month back. So that's what they said, that you go back and renegotiate. So the Indian government was willing to renegotiate, Mauritius government was not willing to renegotiate. So there was then that becomes a little political. Then somewhere now this was resolved, and last month you have now the renegotiated treaty with Mauritius.
Cyprus is also renegotiated.
Sorry?
Cyprus.
Cyprus is just under negotiation as we speak. Yeah. So what I am saying is that the government to government interaction, whether at the time of signing the treaty, whether at the time of implementing the treaty, or at the time of dispute resolution, becomes sometimes very political. It is no longer only the realm of the fiscal issue, it becomes political. So then, it depends on how it takes the turn. So politically, if the thing is such that the other country is able to put some pressure on the source country to come on the table and start negotiating, the map will work faster. So he said that when can you invoke a map is that when a taxpayer considers that the actions of a contracting state will result in a non-treaty position. So what does actions of a contracting state mean? It means that the decisions of a contracting state which are of legislative or regulatory nature, means it should affect your taxation basically, apply generally or to individual taxpayers. So it can apply even generally. Okay, suppose if they make the change in the law, which is applying generally, not only to individual taxpayers. So for example, if they say, they put something in MAT, for example, and they say even if you don't have a PE, you have to pay MAT. Just as an example I am giving you, it's applicable to everybody. So even that can be contested. It is not necessary that the amendment should only impact a particular type of a taxpayer. So suppose if there is an amendment in ATIA, ATIB, it may only impact to a particular taxpayer who is claiming deduction. Any general kind of a tax action which can have a result in a non-treaty taxation will also be within the scope of the MAP application. It will, end of the day, it should result in a charge against a agreed taxpayer. It should not be theoretical. It should not be something, if this happens, then it will happen, or in that circumstances only it will happen. No. It should be that the amendment in the law is such that it is going to impact. So where the resultant taxation is not only a possibility but a probability, right? So as I said, that you can either file for MAP either after the notice has been issued, or even before the issue of the, either after the assessment has been issued, or even before the issue of the assessment. But before the issue of the assessment, at least you should have some material to prove. So for example, in TP case, say you should at least have received a show cause notice to say that the TPO is proposing these kind of adjustments. He may not have finally passed the order. But even before a show cause notice, just because you may have a possibility that you may get hit, then that time you cannot invoke. So something like this, you need to know which stage of the process are you, where it looks like, okay, now this is going to come as an addition to me. Then you have to start the process. And you can initiate the action even before the finalization of the assessment.
Generally, MAP is taken as a last recourse.
Yes, that is true. Generally, people wait till the assessment is done, then they file for the CIT appeal or whatever. Because as I said, MAP is an expensive process. When they know that, okay, for first year they have done this, then for next assessment year also they'll do, for third assessment year also they'll do, then they think, oh, then there are so many years involved, and then the tax liability, if it is used, then the MAP can be invoked generally.
Suppose there is a proposal to amend any provisions in the Income Tax Act, budget. That time itself this recourse can be taken.
No, so that's a good question. Now an amendment is proposed in the income tax. Right now we had the budget. Okay. Now in the budget something has been proposed. Can we invoke MAP? The answer is no. Because the resultant taxation should appear as a risk which is not only possible but is also probable. So just at the time when the law is getting amended, you can't invoke MAP. But once the law is amended and you know that that thing is going to apply to you, then you can start the MAP process. But when the amendment has been discussed and the law has not got amended, till then you can't invoke MAP.
And it is applicable only for a foreign company operating in India, or it can be invoked by Indian company having branch operation outside India for the taxes pertaining to branch.
So it works both ways.
So I'll give you an example. There is an Indian company who is having branch in US. Now Indian income tax authorities have taken a stand that branch related expenses.
No. That can't happen. If you are an Indian company, you have a US branch, and the US tax authorities have taken some stand to tax that branch, which is not in accordance with the India-US DTA. See, your grieving should be with the foreign government, not with your own government in relation to your foreign operations. But there the US government can't do anything. It is you and your government.
That means once the assent of the president is given for the enactment of the changes in the law, then he can go for this process.
That's
He is
true.
agreed.
Yeah.
And the amendment should be to result in monetary loss to the party.
Yeah, it should result that as a result of this amendment, I am likely to get hit. It should be probable. Now, these are the things which when you file the competent authority application in your home country, they will assess. They'll say, okay, this amendment has happened. Please explain how this is going to impact you. What is the probability that it is going to impact you? Then if they are convinced, then they will take up. If at that point of time you say, no, this general amendment has happened, if he picks up the point, it may be relevant. If he does not pick up, then they may not agree. So that's a matter of subjective determination.
That means if it is in a procedural in nature, it may not stand in their own.
Yeah, generally, MAP you will not go for changes in the procedures. Generally, you will go where there is a change in the taxation of a specific expense or an income kind of a thing. So it should result in a charge. See, that's also very important. It should result in a charge against the aggrieved taxpayer. Today, if they go and say that there is an amendment that the time limit of filing appeal before ITAT is reduced from 60 days to 30 days, against that you can't go in MAP because that's a procedure. It is not resulting in a tax charge to you. No?
But one thing, sir, this may be, can it violate the fundamental provisions of the IT Act?
Of?
Income Tax Act.
In what way?
Whatever be the procedure adopted within the ambit of laws of both the countries.
So it is very important for us to understand what is the relationship of a treaty with the Income Tax Act. That is very, very important because see, we should not get a feeling that, so one thing is that first we need to understand that treaty is an instrument of international law. Right? Does international law override domestic law?
Yes.
There are places where it overrides, there are places where it cannot override. Okay? So, treaty cannot say, your residence definition in Income Tax Act should be a particular way. That is the sovereignty of a nation. But treaty can say that when you are dealing cross-border, you apply this definition. Right? So there is a relationship between the Income Tax Act and the treaty where the substantive part of taxation, the treaty will override the income tax. But there are points where income tax law is the supreme because that comes with the sovereignty of the country. So any MAP resolution or any taxation, what you have agreed in the treaty is an international obligation, and in India we have had that specific thing to say that where the treaty is more beneficial to the taxpayer, it will override the income tax. Under section 90 subsection 2, that mandate has been given very clearly. So the intention of the law is very clear that where treaty and income tax are operating at the similar level, treaty will override. So we should not view that as a violation of the fundamental principles of the IT Act because we have voluntarily to increase trade and investment. The government has taken the big picture. See, any increase of trade in the country involves a lot of non-tax considerations also. See, tax is only one part of it. If I'm able to see today, Mauritius is the #1 FI investor. Today the entire stock market in India has grown because of the kind of inflows Mauritius had. From a larger picture perspective, the country has gained more in that rather than the loss, the revenue loss on exempting that income. I would urge everybody of you to read the Supreme Court decision for Azadi Bachao Andolan. It's a 2003 case, but it's very beautifully enunciated by the Supreme Court. What is the relationship between treaty and the IT Act? And there they have said that you should not view that by going to treaty, you feel that you are infringing the provisions of the Act. So this is again to answer your point that taxpayer can initiate action when the taxation is not in accordance with the provision of the convention and not when the taxation is contrary to the domestic law. Okay, so if you are an Indian company having a branch abroad and then you have a problem in the way the Indian authorities are treating the branch expenses, that is under the income tax. Then you cannot revoke MAP. But if the US authorities are taxing the branch office in a manner which is inconsistent here, then you go to your own government, file your grievance, and they will take up the matter with the US authorities. That is how they operate. Generally, what we see are the common issues for MAP are attribution of profits, because it's a very subjective thing. So there is a P. Then there is 100 rupees of income earned jointly. Now, how much to attribute to India? How much to attribute to the US or the foreign country? Principles of attribution. So, under Article 7(2), the principle has been laid down for attribution very clearly that you should attribute as if it's a separate entity. But if somebody tries to do attribution more than what is going as per the Article 7(2), then the taxpayer can go to his government and say, "Oh, look, this state country, is not trying to attribute, is trying to attribute the entire thing to the state. That is not correct. Let's invoke MAP." So that's one of the reasons. Then there are issues which arise out of thin capitalization rules. So thin capitalization rules are like GAR, right? They are anti-avoidance provisions where under certain situations the interest can get recharacterized as dividend, basically. So they do not want so if you are to get 100 rupees capital in your company, you get only 1 rupee of capital and 99 rupees of interest of debt. Then suddenly you have a huge interest expense and you claim a deduction for that. So thin capitalization rules are generally rules which specify a debt equity ratio for certain industries. So under that, it is mentioned that if it is above this, then whatever the dividend will be characterized, or whatever the interest will get recharacterized as dividends. So if there are those kind of issues, then those are issues which are again used for MAP. Then if you have to determine residence, whether P exists or no, and that all determination is based on certain factual information of the taxpayer in his home country. But the host country has misapplied those facts. Then again you can invoke the map so that the government of the home country can tell to the source country that these are not the correct facts, these are the correct facts.
P means private equity.
So this permanent establishment, existence of permanent establishment. As I said, MAP is invoked irrespective of remedies provided under the domestic tax law. It is in addition and not in substitution. Now, if MAP is revoked or invoked rather, and no resolution is reached, taxpayer can still revert to the remedies under the domestic tax law if there are time limitations still available. So if there is a rectification issue, I went for MAP, my application got rejected, I can still come back and I can still file a 154, but that I will have to be within the time limit of 154. So generally the practical thing what happens is that people file on a protective basis, the appeals at the India level, and then they go and do a parallel institution of MAP proceedings. Now, courts and tribunals, what they also do is that when the matter comes up for hearing and if it is subject to a MAP resolution, they also keep the issue pending. And they say, okay, if this is a MAP, then we will wait for the outcome of MAP, and they give an adjournment of such cases. As far as India is concerned, it says that once you have reached and accepted, once the taxpayer has accepted the MAP decision, then they should compulsorily withdraw their appeals. So, Indian tax authorities does not want a situation where you go out and got some part relief under MAP. Then for the rest of the part relief, you are still fighting with the Indian courts. They are saying either you use this or that. You start both the remedies, but if you are getting some remedy under MAP, that is the only remedy which you will be entitled to. You will not be entitled to any further remedy by the court. So one of the preconditions is that if we will implement the MAP, you will have to withdraw your appeal before the various forums, either CID appeal or ITAT or High Court. As I said, the period of limitation is 3 years. Within 3 years, he has to file MAP, and either it could be assessment or demand notice. Sometimes there is an interpretation issue as to from where the 3 years period starts. Show cause notice, demand notice, assessment notice, reassessment notice, revised demand notice. So there the OECD has said that you interpret it in the manner in which it is most favorable to the taxpayer, because MAP is a provision which is a beneficial provision for the taxpayer. It should be interpreted most liberally in a manner which it works in favor of the taxpayer to the extent possible. As I said, 3 years is the minimum. If it does not provide a time limit, then the period of limitation under the DTL will apply. Indian laws do not have any specific time laws for MAP. So 3 years is generally taken to be a minimum time limit. It cannot be less than 3 years. Now here I have put some transitional issues for us to understand. That if suppose at the time when the assessment happened, okay, I was a resident of US. Subsequently I moved to UK and became a resident of UK. But when I had initiated the proceedings when I was a US resident, I can still continue the proceedings with the US competent authority. Notwithstanding that, I have subsequently become a resident of the another country. Sometimes the treaties can say that you can present the case to either of the competent authorities. So the general rule is if a US company is, for example, operating in India it has to go and apply to the US authority. Some treaties can, that flexibility has been left to the treaties, where they say, okay, you apply to India, India will refer it back to US, and then US will again call India for the meeting. For treaty abuse situations also MAP can be used. So, if you have already received the ITAT order, CITAP order, or say High Court order, or ITAT order, still you can go for MAP based on the rules under the domestic tax law. So this is very important, because sometimes you look for relief till ITAT, then you don't get, then you go to the High Court, then you file for MAP, but High Court suddenly pronounces the order. So there the domestic tax law should provide for situations where, where the court has already given the judgment whether MAP can be invoked or not invoked. So that is depending on the domestic tax law. And the article is not specifying what happens to a demand. Whether there is a stay of demand in the meantime, part demand you have to pay, part demand you have to not pay. So India has, specifically have, at least with US, UK and Denmark, a specific MOU that the tax collection is suspended during the period where MAP is in process for that taxpayer. So again, Article 25 does not prescribe any specific form for filling up of the application, and all these procedural things are left to the domestic tax law. So in India we have Rule 44G, and that has prescribed Form 34F for initiating the MAP. So if the Indian taxpayer wants to initiate the MAP, then what should be the process is put here under Form 34F. This is a flip situation, like if an Indian taxpayer has got not correctly taxed in the US and then it wants to initiate, then there is Form 34, and this Form 34 has to be filed with the FTTR, which is your Foreign Tax and Trade Tax Research Department of Revenue. This is the competent authority for MAP purposes in India, this particular division within the Ministry of Finance. So officials from this division will go and do the dispute resolution with the other countries. So as I mentioned, so MAP is again a two-stage process. First stage where the competent authority will vet the application and will admit the application. Sometimes it can reject the application also. And once having accepted it, then they will approach the other country.
So this rejection can be challenged by aggrieved party than by Indian law, FTTR.
Yeah.
It is to be accepted that this.
Yeah, there is no challenge to that. Now, what are the duties and responsibilities for the competent authority? I'll just quickly take you through. They have to negotiate the mutual agreement procedure in good faith. They have to give an opportunity to be heard to the other side, even to the taxpayer. Although the taxpayer cannot take part in the process, he can come and give his side of the story and go. Wherever there is any special thing to be looked at, then they should consult with the experts. If there is some very technical matter which only the specialists can look at. And as I said, there is a duty to negotiate and endeavor to resolve. This has to be done with an open mind. It cannot be done with the spirit of saying, I want to prove myself right. Or that other person says, I want to prove myself right. There is an open mind, so there is a good faith negotiation. Be objective, look at the merits of the case. Then whether it is against you, for you, doesn't matter, but this is what the duties and responsibilities you are charged with as a dispute resolution authority. Now quickly I can just take you also through the MAP process, which is prescribed under Rule 44H. Now this is the other way. This is where the US citizen has filed for MAP in their country. The MAP application has been accepted. Then the tax authority of US has touched base with the tax authority of India. Then upon the receipt of the reference from the overseas competent authority, the Indian authority will call for and examine all the relevant records to provide its response. And it shall endeavour to arrive at a resolution of the case in accordance with such agreement. So now this has also been put under the rules itself. Not only under the article, but this has also been incorporated under the rules. Whatever the MAP resolution is, it should be communicated to the Chief Commissioner or the Director General of Income Tax in writing. That is very important. So now the other thing is that there is this huge issue of whether can you go for MAP for TP adjustments. Now why is that an issue? Because what happens is you have Article 9(1), which is your TP article. Article 9 is the only place where there can be economic double taxation. So I'm sure all of you now must be familiar with what is juridical double taxation and what is economic double taxation. The treaties are basically expected to resolve only juridical double taxation issues. They are not expected to resolve economic double taxation issues. So juridical double taxation means the same income getting taxed in the hands of two taxpayers. Right? So that is your economic double taxation. Juridical double taxation, the same taxpayer getting taxed in two different jurisdictions. Now when you do the TP adjustment under Article 9, it has the effect of the same taxpayer, okay, is the same income is getting taxed in the hands of the Indian associated enterprise also, and it is anyway getting taxed in the hands of the foreign entity in this home country. So Article 9(1) is actually used, it's only exception to the overall treaty, and it is the only place where there is economic double taxation that we need to understand. So there is generally an Article 9(2) which says that if you made an adjustment to the subsidiary, the foreign company has a right to do the corresponding adjustment in the accounts of the foreign company. So they purchased. So Indian company has done the purchase. You have decreased the purchase price. You said it is not at arm's length. Then they should give the relief there, and the flip also should happen. That if an Indian company has got a TP adjustment done outside India, then Indian tax authority should give the corresponding adjustment. Now India does not agree to that. In a lot of its treaties, Article 9(2) is not there. In some treaties it is there, but in many treaties it is not there. Now the issue which arises is, in those treaties where Article 9(2) is absent, whether can MAP be invoked for doing the corresponding adjustment. The view of the OECD is that MAP should be available, but India has reserved its position to say that we do not agree. If 9(2) is not present in the treaty, we will not allow MAP to be invoked for the corresponding provisions. So how does now MAP gets implemented? Basically, there will be effect, as I said, even if there is a time barring under the domestic tax law, and implementation is generally subject to its acceptance by the taxpayer and withdrawal of the taxpayer by his appeals. If these two are not there, then even if you have MAP, you will not be able to implement it. So in India, there has been a specific instructions which has been issued 12/2002 and Rule 44H, which lays down the procedure for implementing a MAP resolution. This is very, very clear. So they have given the guidance, and I'm not going to go into it because you can read it. So they have said that it should be approved by the chairman of the CBDT and before being communicated to the field authorities. And IT income tax procedures and time limits will not govern the implementation. This effect has to be given as if it was a part of the treaty itself. The document, which is agreement, that is treated like the treaty itself. Only if the assessee refuses the MAP resolution, then it should proceed as if there was no MAP which was resolved. And then it goes on to say that how, where assessment is pending, how the resolution should happen. Where the CIT appeal is pending, how the resolution should happen. And where the ITAT is there in the resolution, how it should happen. So I'm not getting into this. This is fairly straightforward. You can go through that. And the effect should be given within 90 days. Within 90 days of the receipt of the MAC document, and once the assessee has given the acceptance and withdrawn his appeal. That is very important. And then it goes to coming back to Article 25.3. What Article 25.3 says is that they shall endeavour to resolve any difficulties or doubts arising as to the interpretation or application of the convention also. Means you got a taxpayer specific case, you have started negotiating that, then you realize that this happened because in the treaty itself you are interpreting a different interpretation. Then you can use the MAP process to itself correct the treaty interpretation and issue a notification to that. That is what this basically means. It can be used to reach or correct a wrong interpretation being used by one of the competent authorities. And they have said that either they can form a team, they can have a joint commission through which it can be negotiated. Under the UN Model Convention, they have said that they should form bilateral procedures of how somebody should do the MAP. And you can have unilateral procedures to explain how the bilateral procedures work. So whatever we saw now, Rule 44H, 44G, this all come because they are our procedures within our domestic tax law to show how we will give effect to the MAP resolution. This was not present earlier, they only come in the last 10 years. So again, they have given out how the bilateral procedures should be. I'm not getting into that. So one of the example is that, as I said, India has entered into an MOU with the US, UK and Denmark that we will suspend the collection of the taxes. We will give the stay, you furnish a bank guarantee, we will give you the stay. So that's a bilateral procedure agreed between two countries as to how, if somebody has initiated MAP, how will the other things work. That's an excellent example of that. Your Rule 44H has been an example of how unilateral procedures will work in terms of how you will give the effect to the MAP resolution. So this is I just listed down. Basically, the taxpayer has to furnish the bank guarantee for so US, UK and Denmark there is a specific stay provided there now. In all other countries, the stay, to be given the stay for the taxes to be given continues to be at the discretion of the assessing officer. So on the receipt of the request, AO will keep in abeyance the tax recovery and the bank guarantee will be given and the stay order will be executed. And the suspension of the tax is only till the MAP process is there. Once it is removed or the taxpayer has refused to accept MAP, then the demand will become alive once more. And this MOU, it's not only the foreign taxpayer, but their Indian subsidiaries can also initiate this. So if a US company's subsidiary has got hit with TP and the foreign parent has taken up that issue with the US tax authorities, then although the demand is not there on the foreign tax, the head office, it is on the Indian subsidiary, even the Indian subsidiary can take the benefit of this MOU. That is very important for us to know. Now it's the last article under this, it says where there is I have presented a case and the competent authorities have been unable to reach a settlement. Okay, within 2 years. So see, MAP cannot be, it cannot be endless. Within 3 years you are supposed to file for MAP. But the earlier articles have not given the time limit within which you have to resolve the MAP. So it can keep on going on for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. So to do that, what they said, within 2 years, if you are unable to reach a resolution, please refer to arbitration. That means by implication, within 2 years, you should be able to reach the resolution. need not submit to arbitration if in the meantime the court has already pronounced the judgment. So you file for MAP, 2 years pass, in the meantime the court announced the judgment. Then you don't need to go to arbitration because you have already a court order. The arbitration cannot override the court order. Mandatory arbitration of unresolved issues. Okay, and 25(5) is only providing a very broad mechanism and issues which is unresolved after 2 years, and how the arbitration should happen, what is the process, how binding it will be, that they have said that you can agree bilaterally through a procedure. So up till now in India we do not have any guidance on whether we can do arbitration, or if we have to do arbitration, how we have to do arbitration. Only whatever I have told you now, the MAP only process has come. There is no clear direction today from the Indian tax authorities about the arbitration part. So that is as far as your MAP is concerned. I will just give you an update. So there is a BEPS project which all of you would know is being initiated by the OECD. Very recently there are 14 action points where they are trying to standardize the principles of international tax law. One of the action point is making dispute resolution mechanism more effective. So what happens is that you would have seen up till now that the Article 25 is giving only a very broad level guidance, right? It is only laying down the principle, but it is not giving anything more. So there is a tendency between some countries not to give importance to MAP. As I said, that endeavor to resolve, good faith, it is not being shown by many countries. They are keeping on dragging the process. Sometimes for frivolous reasons they will reject the process, they will not come down to the negotiating table. So these are all the practical challenges and difficulties which the taxpayers face. So BEPS has come out with that how do we make this process more effective. Okay, so there is a specific action point 14 which has been basically on the MAP. Again, it being a dispute resolution process, there is nothing which a OECD can do, because it should be done by the people who are actually involved in the dispute resolution process. So even under the action points, what they have done is they have tried to reiterate certain principles which were already existing, which some countries are following. So they are trying to make it a little more formal.
What is the expense of BEP?
Sorry?
BEP is expense.
Okay, this is basic. This is your base erosion and profit shifting. So that is the BEPS is the action project where profit shifting, it is intended to provide international tax avoidance. So there is shifting of base, when you shift the tax base to another country, or you shift the profit itself to another country. That's why it's called the BEPS. So what they have said is, under action point 14, they have said that at least you have 3 minimum standard principles with respect to the MAP process. So they have said you allow the taxpayers access to MAP when they meet the requirements. Do not try to create technical hurdles, do not try to reject the application on technicalities, on procedural grounds. Give maximum leeway to the taxpayers to file the MAP application. Make sure that your domestic administrative procedures are not designed in such a way that they block the MAP process. You should enable the MAP process. And countries should implement Article 25 in good faith. Now these are the 3, you can say, guiding principles which they have reiterated, I would say, because these anyway you are expected to follow under the Article 25. And to magnify or to implement this, they have come up with 11 best practices which a country should follow for a MAP. It lays out best practices. These are obviously recommendatory, but the idea is that if you have signed on the BEPS, then you are expected to incorporate this in your domestic tax law. So they say include 9 para 2, like what India was saying I will not include, because this is related to economic adjustment. Then you start publishing your MAP resolutions, because see, the MAP resolution is not a public document. It is an agreement reached by US authority with Indian authorities in respect of a specific taxpayer. So the MAP results are not publicly known. So what they are saying is you remove the name of the taxpayer and you publish the agreement, because that agreement may contain items of precedential value or for general principles of interpretation which can be used in subsequent cases. You create a global awareness to all tax officers that they should perform the obligations of the treaty properly, and how if they do not do the assessment properly, it can result into double taxation. So they are trying to say that at the ground level itself, you want to minimize the cases where the taxation is not in accordance with the treaty. Countries are encouraged to implement more bilateral APA programs, which India has also done for transfer pricing. So advanced pricing arrangements, it's like an advanced ruling which you get. Now a bilateral APA is a form of a MAP, because it's again a government to government interaction where they agree that so much the principle on which I will tax the person for transfer pricing. To allow multi-year resolution. So if I go for an assessment, if my facts are the same, to allow for earlier and subsequent assessment years in the same way, so that again and again I do not have to go for the same set of facts. Again, this appropriate measures to suspend collection of tax. As I told you, India has done only with respect to US, UK and Denmark. They are saying as a best practice, you should do it in all the cases. To choose whether they should go to MAP or they should go to arbitration. If they do not want to go to MAP, you can try to convince the taxpayer to use other forums of dispute resolution. And they can explain how MAP works vis-a-vis the domestic law, they can publish guidance, they can issue clarifications, they can issue circulars, so that the taxpayer takes an informed decision. If he wants to pursue under domestic tax law, let him not go under MAP, let him not start the multiplicity of proceedings. So these are some of the things which they have put, where these will be useful. And just, the final report is also listed a group of 20 countries which have signed this action plan. India is not one of them. India has signed only the earlier parts, but when it comes to dispute resolution, we conveniently have not signed. So these are some of the countries which have signed and they will abide by the MAP resolution. Mostly you will see are all the European countries basically, as part of the EU. So this I have for Article 25. I think we can take up the other article also quickly, so that now, as I said, exchange of information is a very, very interesting article, and all the who apply today, you hear about getting foreign black money back in India as an administrative mechanism that can happen only through Article 26 of the treaty. So I'll again just give you some insights here. Now, what is the object and purpose of exchange of information? So if you look at the treaty, any treaty says that, if you look at the name of the treaty, it says avoidance of double taxation and avoidance of fiscal avoidance of taxes, fiscal evasion of taxes. So evasion of taxes, avoidance of evasion of taxes is also one of the main objects of the treaty, apart from avoiding double taxation. How do you avoid, this taxes getting, abused and things like this? The governments have to share exchange of information, because based on information only you can do the assessment, build up your case before the courts. So the exchange of information article is basically designed to facilitate information exchange between the two government authorities, so that maximum fiscal evasion can be prevented. Today we have heard everything about tax avoidance, not only in India, but today the entire world is talking about tax avoidance. The entire BEPS project has come because of tax avoidance. there is a general feeling that large companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple, they are paying hardly some taxes, 0.01% tax in other countries, but they are earning so much income that because of all the kind of tax avoidance structures which they have created. So how do you get information relating to those if you need to tax them? So there is an increased focus on tax avoidance. In 2002, OECD had come out with a model agreement on exchange of information. So there is an exchange of information article in the treaty, which is Article 26. But this only lays out the principles of exchange of information. What was required was a more detailed draft agreement which people should sign. So in 2002, OECD came out with that model draft. After it came out with the model draft, there has been an increased fillip to the activity of signing off the agreement for exchange of information. It represents the standard of effective exchange of information. So today now you have a global template which all countries can use for their bilateral and multilateral agreements for exchange of information. This was not existing before 2002. Now coming back to the treaty, what Article 26(1) says, and I have just paraphrased the exact wordings so that we can come to know. What it says is that the competent authorities shall share certain information if such information is foreseeably relevant. So we'll analyze all these words, but the basic is the competent authorities will compulsorily share information if such information is relevant to carrying out the provisions of the treaty or to the administration or enforcement of the domestic law also. The information could concern taxes of every kind and description. See, this is very important for us to understand. I think sometime back we had a discussion whether MAP can be used for any other taxes. We said MAP cannot be used for any other taxes. But as far as the exchange of information is concerned, exchange of information can happen for any kind of a tax. Estate duty, customs duty, wealth tax, your excise duty, VAT, each and every kind of tax, the information the governments can ask if they feel that it is relevant for their domestic investigation.
So to what extent the domestic secrecy law will override this article?
So there are those standards which we will come, and that is the interplay, and those are the practical difficulties sometimes which are there in the implementation of this. It is not also restricted by Article 2 also. That means it need not be in respect to the resident of one of the state. So the person who was there in the US, then he was for some time residing in UK, and then he came to India. And then India has some information that it has avoided tax. It can go to UK and ask about the information about that person's activities there when he was staying there, although he was not a resident of UK. So India can still ask to UK information about a person who is neither a resident of UK nor a resident of India. That is the beauty of this. What kind of information which can be exchanged? It covers all types of information. So see now, the treaty first gave MAP. They said MAP is totally benefit to the taxpayer. I am giving you, it should be interpreted in the way in which it is most beneficial to the taxpayer. You should endeavor to resolve issues, it should be in good faith. Everything should be made workable so that the person can take the benefit of MAP. This is the other side of it, the exchange of information. Everything should be made possible that the exchange of information is facilitated, not prevented. So this is the other side of the things. It should cover all types of information, including instructive knowledge concerning facts and particulars. Scope is not restricted to mere exchange of documents, but also depositions of witnesses, certified copies of unedited original documents to the extent which are permissible. Even these, And some of the treaties, like you have the Indo-German Treaty and the Indo-Saudi Arabia Treaty, they have also defined information includes documents, information includes evidence. So suppose now you had somebody like Vijay Mallya being prosecuted in UK, for example. All the case papers relating to that India can ask. So not only his bank accounts, but all the witnesses who gave their depositions, evidence collected during the investigation, all the case file can be asked for by the government under the information clause. That is what the intention is. Like as I said, in Indo-Saudi Arabia DTA, it says that I can please give me the witness statements also. It also does not cover taxpayer specific information but also general evasion information. So suppose you have a country like say Cyprus or Mauritius, they have put some, in their country some taxpayers are using a specific structure to avoid tax. It is not taxpayer specific. But India can go to Mauritius or to Cyprus and say, boss, give me all the information relating to such kind of tax structures in your country. Why is it not getting taxed? Why is it getting taxed? Who are the people who have used these structures? How the tax is being avoided? Like this general information also can be gathered about certain tax avoidance measures. It need not be taxpayer specific. But the information should be foreseeably relevant. You can't get up one fine day and ask for whatever you want. You can't go on a fishing expedition and say, okay, do one thing, give me all the information of all the taxpayers. You have to build up some prima facie case, some prima facie relevance. You have some intelligent information that using these structures there's tax avoidance happening. Then there is a basis that you share that information with the foreign authority and say, look, this is the reason why I am asking you this. According to me, this is the reason why this is relevant. So you have to pass the test of the relevance and make sure that the information offered is relevant to the requesting state. Some examples. Say, as I said, residential status of the taxpayer. Sometimes you may need the information relating to that. That guy was what kind of properties he has, for how many days he was there. If that information you are not able to get, you should obtain it from the foreign company. Attribution to the profits of P, again if you need some information. For information for application of map itself may be through exchange of information. If there is any exemption being sought, if there is a beneficial owner, who is the beneficial owner of the royalty of FTS, that kind of information again you can ask through the exchange of information clause. So as I said, it operates without the restriction of Article 1 and operates without restriction of Article 2. How will the information be exchanged? They can either exchange by, so when I request to Mauritius, they will give me the information, or sometimes it is automatic. I have agreed with Mauritius that wherever you have these kind of tax structures, whoever is using it, automatically please give me the information. I don't have to request for it each time. Sometimes it is spontaneous. Like Mauritius have discovered that this guy is doing some evasion in India. Immediately they will call up the India people and they will give the information spontaneously without even asking. So either it can be based on request, it can be based on automatic, it can be based on spontaneous, it depends on what kind of relationship you have with the tax authorities. Now, these are all mentioned in the OECD's practical world. The thing is, governments do not like to exchange information. Like how for map, there is no good faith. But here also the governments try as far as possible not to, because they don't want to get into the jhamela of trying to get information and send it, there's administrative cost involved. Generally speaking, therefore, it is based on request. Even when it is based on request, sometimes they will figure out some technical way and then this and then demand the information. Like how you have for under the RTI Act, right? You will ask for information, government will look at ways and means to deny it. It is like this, it's the same between government to government, which is why the treaty is trying to put most of the principles in place that what should be your conduct, what should be the level of your effective exchange of information. Now there are some other methods of exchange of information. There is in an assessee's case, there can be simultaneous examination. Suppose, like again, I am just taking Vijay Mallya's case, but suppose now if he is there, he can say, oh, you raid his property there also, I am raiding his property here also. This can be simultaneous proceedings for a taxpayer. Tax examination abroad means if they are interrogating a person there, they can call the person from India to be a witness to that interrogation. So that is again very important. So I can again get information. So like how you had the David Headley, the terror attack case, right? He gave the deposition through a video conference sitting in a jail in the US, which was shared with India on a real-time basis. That kind of a thing, that was for a criminal case. This can also happen for a tax case here. And there can be sometimes industry-wide exchange of information, like for example pharmaceutical industry. The two authorities can agree that this type of information is resulting in a lot of evasion. Whenever you get this at the industry level, please give it to me. So they can have that kind of a industry level information. Or they can have luxury goods. You know, who are the consumers of luxury goods? At the industry level, give me how many cars were sold, how many houses were sold, how many jewelry was sold. They can define beyond a particular value. So industry-wide information also. So these are all the various ways in which information can be shared by the governments. Sometimes they explain how the information should be shared. So if you look at the Indo-Germany DTA, it is very interesting. They have actually given the procedure, how the information will be done, who will be responsible, how the secrecy will be maintained. I am not getting into that, but I am just saying that sometimes you can specify how the information will be exchanged. For which period you will exchange the information. So who can exchange the information, what kind of information can be exchanged, how information can be exchanged, in whose respect the information can be exchanged, and for which period the information can be exchanged. There are all these various facets when you talk about getting information from somebody. It can be for a year. So when the treaty was in force, say, so you want information for assessment year 10-11, okay? But today you are in 15-16, say. Today the treaty is not in force with that country. It got terminated. Then you can ask information for that year, even though for that year the treaty was in force. But the other way around is okay. If for that year the treaty was not in force, but today if you are asking information, then you can ask him for that year. Now this is very important because this can also mean, and you know, this is the other one which I want to say, when there was an older treaty which had a very restrictive use of exchange of information, then you signed a newer treaty which has a more wider exchange of information, you can still ask under the new treaty. That means today if we are successful in amending the exchange of information with Switzerland, which is the basic, you know, the entire thing apart from Mauritius was Switzerland. Mauritius was the tax avoidance part, Switzerland is the black money part. But what the government is doing, it wants to amend Article 26 of the Indo-Switzerland DTA, where under the government can ask for the information of the Swiss bank account holders from the Switzerland competent authorities under this. Up till now the Switzerland treaty is a very small and restrictive definition of exchange of information. But today if we are successful in renegotiating the exchange of information clause of the Switzerland treaty, then even for earlier years, you can still get the information as per the provisions of the new treaty. That is the main thing. This is what the government is pushing very, very hard. They have been successful with Mauritius. Now they are going behind Switzerland and they are trying to get this Article 26 in place. Once this Article 26 is in place, there is a lot more ways in which the information will be able to, Switzerland will be able to share a lot more information under the treaty, because they will have an international obligation to do so. Now moving on to Article 26.2. Once once you receive the information, what do you do? Then you have to take it as a secret. It has to be confidential information, as if you had obtained that information through, say, a survey, raid, seizure under your domestic tax law. They can be, such information could be disclosed only to specified authorities or persons. So this is generally spelled out in the agreement that you can only do in relation to the authorities investigating that case. So income tax information you may not be able to share with FEMA people. Either you cannot share it with the excise duty people. You have to only share it within the income tax department. So there are some, it comes with some fretters. Or you can do it in, public court proceedings you can use and judicial decisions you can use. So once it goes in the court, then it becomes a matter of public record. Then you can use the information. So again, these are certain ways in which you have to use. It cannot be disclosed to persons other than mentioned in Article 26(2). So as a government, they found Swiss bank account holder. I filed an application under RTI 2005. I cannot get that information under the RTI. Because that is still supposed to be under the treaty obligation, it is still confidential information till the matter goes to the court. And of course, once it goes to the court, then it becomes public. So now this is one thing which we need to understand. See so while obviously I am not advocating black money here, but see today the perception has been built up by the media. Swiss bank account holders, Swiss bank account holders. All Swiss bank account holding is not necessarily relating to black money. Let's first understand that. All black money people may have had Swiss bank account, but all Swiss bank account people may not necessarily have had black money. There are legally possible that you may have created some accounts. Now, the press, what happens the moment you get the information, right? They say make it public, publish the names. When the income tax department is still doing the investigation, that is not permitted under the treaty. Which is what certain sections of our public are not able to understand. If you would have seen, there was this entire issue with the HSBC case, where the previous government refused to divulge the information publicly. That is true and correct, because under Article 26 you have got some information. Okay, you cannot make it public till you have completed your investigation. Then you have charged him with the income tax demand, and if he has gone to the court, then in the court you can do. Because while you are investigating, the privacy of the person has to be, under Article 19 of the Constitution, has to be prevented. And there is a very good case law of Ram Jethmalani versus Union of India. And the Supreme Court has given all these things which they have said that when you are investigating somebody, nobody is presumed guilty unless it is proven. So first only if you get the information, you have 100 people who are bank account holders, Swiss bank account holders. Out of that, maybe 80 people would have been having it gone through illegal means. So why the other 20 people should suffer? So under Article 26, there is an international obligation on the government of India to not to disclose the Swiss bank account money holders till investigations are completed. Once investigation is completed, demand has been raised, then perhaps. So that is where there is a disconnect. The perception which is built up in our media is that you have to disclose. So I am just saying that after today, after you hear this, maybe whenever you see that, you should put it in perspective that if information has been received under Article 26, it cannot be disclosed.
Sir, the ABC, 3 countries, treaty between AB, treaty between BC, no treaty between AC. B has received some information, investigation completed, charged with income tax. C can access those information from B.
That's all. Information should not be disclosed to third countries unless specifically provided for in the treaty. If it is provided that you can share it with third countries, you can do. Otherwise, it is strictly for the private consumption of the person requesting the information. See, we do not realize, but for us it's a very unidimensional issue of black money Swiss bank account. That's all. But it does not work like this in the international thing. It is, you may want information for fiscal evasion in certain things, like if you do say between Germany and France. Once you make public that information, there could be other implications for the taxpayer. If he is having a divorce proceedings His wife may suddenly say, oh, you had this wealth here, okay, you get all this into my alimony. See, you never know, right? So you have to be very careful in protecting the privacy of your citizens. Governments cannot start making, the financial affairs of the citizens public like that, because for that person, it can mean many other things. So that is why under Article 91, we also have right to privacy as one of our fundamental rights as a citizen. Our government, imagine if they just start sharing information of you and me to some foreign government suddenly, we all get chipped out with the 5-4 people who are actually doing the wrong things, then it is something of a concern to us, right? So privacy law is a major issue in Western countries. In the US, in Europe, they can't have privacy infringement. So they are saying, I will give you the information for the sole purpose of tax evasion, prevention of tax evasion, but you have to be very careful with it. There are only under so much situation you can divulge it, you can't divulge it to somebody else. So you have to act as the responsible recipient of that information. What you get from the other country. Very, very important. Again, if the information should be shared with other law enforcement agencies, specific provision should be made for the treaty. See, today Vijay Mallya has got all kinds of cases against him. Indian government goes to UK, they say, well, you give me information relating to Vijay Mallya. Okay, what you can get, but then to what authorities, to what people with whom you can share, they will specify that. And they will say, okay, I will give you this information, but you cannot share it with anybody else. I will give you this information, it can only be shared by these 2 departments of the government and not by other departments, because you are charged with the responsibility of acting as a responsible recipient of the information. That is very important. However, there are some, so under Article 26(3), there are again some things they say, look, but there are certain limitations to the obligation of the government who has been asked to provide information. It will not impose an obligation to carry out measures which are at variance with the laws and practice. I can't go and say, oh, Vijay Mallya ka ghar mein jaake usko utha ke le jao. That is not possible, because that is not a proper legal correct procedure in UK to extract information. I can't tell him about taking him to the detention room, torture him for 14 hours and getting the information. Because they are at variance with their laws, the UK laws. So that we have to keep in mind. Then some information, even those countries' laws are not allowed to take. For example, then that you cannot get. Right? So there was a terrorist whose laptop got seized. Now they are going to Apple. They are saying decrypt this data. Suddenly you come to know in the India that terrorist had some shady financial dealings here, which had some fiscal evasion. It cannot tell America, because you go in that Apple computer and get me the contents of the hard disk, because if there is a restriction under the American law, where Americans itself cannot do that to their own citizens. So that we have to keep in mind. We have to respect the laws of that state. Or to supply any information which will disclose any trade, business, industrial, commercial or professional secret or trade process, or which would be contrary to public policy. Right? So again, these are the kind of outer limits which somebody has drawn and said, these are the things on which you cannot get information. As I said this. If the DTL requires the person to be notified, he will be notified. So in the Indo-German treaty, they have actually made this provision. They have said that if India has asked information about a German national or a German resident, then he should be notified that this information has been asked for about it, because that's the law under their domestic tax law. If there is no perceived danger, then only the business secrets can be exchanged. Then there is a lot of this client attorney privilege which gets misused even by the taxpayer in his home country. The lawyers don't give information. They say, this is all protected by the privilege. So what they are saying is that country should take a very narrow definition of the privilege and should pass on the information. They should not use that as a blocking mechanism to refuse to share the information. So these are again very important points. once the information is requested for, what will the other country do who has been asked to provide the information? He will use its information gathering measures to obtain the information. Information is not to be denied on the ground that, I don't need this information, so why do you need it? No, that is also not correct. So Article 26.3 is putting some limitations. Article 26.4 is trying to say, look, these limitations are not allowed. So they are trying to create a balance between trying to make this work. At the same time, it cannot become a free-for-all. So they are trying to create a balance between Article 26 and Article 24. Again here, so they are reiterating that my obligation to give information is subject to the limitation in Article 26.3. But that does not mean that I will sit in judgment to think whether this information was relevant to me had I conducted that investigation. No. So Switzerland cannot say, why did I watch this information? I don't need it if it was the same proceeding was happening in my country. No, that's not allowed. Once India has shown that it is relevant for them to get this information, then the fact that the Swiss authorities may not require that information should be no consequence. As I said, what do information gathering measures mean? They mean administrative or judicial procedures that enable a contracting state to obtain and provide the requested information. And the last article here you have is again something which is very like an enabling thing. A lot of times now what is Swiss bank doing? What is Switzerland doing? No, I can't give you information. It is held by a bank. My bank secrecy law is there which does not permit me. Imagine you have an account with State Bank of India. Some guy in Germany wants information. The guy will then go to the bank. Bank will give your information without you. So in a lot of countries, there are certain restrictions. There are secrecy laws that banks cannot share information regarding their depositors. The most secret law, as we all know, is the Switzerland bank rules. Now that is, they can't, unless they address that, when there is an obligation here from the treaty, they will say no, held by a bank, reject, held by a bank, reject. So Article 26.5 has said that it does not permit, the limitations of 26.3 does not permit. That means you should still be able to do, you should still be able to give the information, and you cannot say I will not give you just because it is held by a bank, held by a financial institution, or held by a nominee or a person acting in an agency or a fiduciary capacity, like a trustee or a trust, for example. These are the typical reasons the countries used to give earlier to deny the information. This is about I can't help it, that bank is not giving me. I can't help it if the financial institution is not giving me. That's why all of you may have heard of this new law called FATCA law, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, which has been enacted in the US, which has made compulsorily all the banks of the world, whenever they deal with US citizens, they have to report that transaction automatically to the US tax authorities. It's a specific thing which India also now signed it. So, because the issue was that, especially with banks and FIs, they always said, look, we can't give you the information. This is all protected by secrecy law. I have an agreement with my bank, with my customer, to say that I will not share your information. They are saying you can't do that. So it overrides Article 26 regarding the limitations. Now in Income Tax Act, I would just like to again just quickly take you through how has this exchange of information been effectuated. So what they did was that we found it very frustrating that we had a lot of these offshore islands, right? Cayman, British Virgin Island, this, that and all. They are something called as semi-sovereign countries. If I have a treaty with UK, my DTA with UK does not cover those countries. Okay, now I need information for those countries. What do? I can't go through the treaty. I don't have an exchange of information article with those countries, but there is a lot of tax evasion which is happening. So what they did was that in 2009 Finance Act, they amended section 90. They said India is empowered to enter into agreements even if it's a non-sovereign jurisdiction. That is specified territories for exchange of information. Okay, so it got the empowerment because 91 earlier only had the power to enter into treaties with countries. Now these are semi-countries, non-sovereign jurisdictions. So they first put in a place to say, okay, first I will get the power to enter into the agreement. Then they notified 11 jurisdictions under section 90 subsection 1. Bermuda, BVI, Cayman Islands, Gibraltar, some of these everyone have. Even including Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong is a SAR, Indo-China DTA does not cover Hong Kong. Now if you look at all this, these are all the typical offshore tax havens. They are strictly they are a autonomous country, but within the overall supervision. So you have, for example, Netherlands Antilles. So the Antilles is situated near US, Netherlands somewhere in Europe. So Antilles politically is part of Netherlands, but it's a separate sovereign country. So when I enter into Indo-Netherlands treaty, and if I see the definition of Netherlands, it will not cover Antilles. So the issue which arose is about how do I get information from them? Because I can't do it through the Indo-Netherlands DTA. The government said, we will try to reach out to each one of them, let them be specified territories, and we will have strict penalties if they do not give us information. So how do they got the penalties done? There was section 94 capital A inserted in Finance Act 2011. They said whichever jurisdiction has lack of effective exchange of information, you fellows, if you deal with that, I will punish you. Okay? So they said, only they have up till now notified only Cyprus here. Jurisdictional areas which lack effective exchange of information. If an assessee enters into transactions with such people, then such transaction will be subject to TP provision. You have to prove that it is you have done things at arm's length. I think that was very important because they have to make they said if they do not agree for exchange of information, I will make life miserable for people in my country who deal with those people. So they have brought out these laws. They will not give you a reduction of expenses. They will. You have to do TDS at 30%, unless and until you are able to give us all information relating to your transactions. TDS applicable at the highest rate. Cyprus they notified. That means now if I deal with Cyprus as a consumer, as a taxpayer, I am in much disadvantage. Every remittance there, I will not get a deduction. Every receipt will be deemed to be my income. I have to prove, I have to show withholding tax of 30%. So now Cyprus finally bent in. They said, okay, boss, we will come. We will now have a effective exchange of information. So this, I think in the last week, as we are speaking, this is happening, and they are planning to, they have finally agreed to sign an exchange of information article with India, and that also with retrospective effect. So this is the power of this Article 26. It can really get into the government to government level enforcement of compelling to sharing information so that we have details of all the transactions.
I think it is going to get denotified from 2013.
Yes, yes. So this is one of the examples which I thought, because all of some of these talks can sound a little theoretical, I wanted to map it to something which is practical. So I will also give you two other cases. Just, these are again something on the TIES, you can go through it. India has now entered into specific tax information exchange agreements with 16 countries. Argentina, Bahamas, Bahrain, Brazil, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands. So you see all those tax havens who are notified under 94A. Now with all of them we have signed something called the TIEA. The TIE authority is emanating from Article 26. That's a very, very important point here. Now look at some of this again I am just giving you other examples. Today we have Mauritius Treaty which got signed in May 2016. Slovenia Treaty which got signed in May 2016, Sweden in 2013, UK in 2013. Specifically putting the Article 26 in its current form. They had the old Article 26 under which it was just said that we will give you information. Now they have put all this. You cannot deny it because it's held by a bank, it's held by an FI. All the new enabling Article 26, all of these countries have signed. And the Indo-Mauritius Protocol has this as one of its most significant aspects. Let's look at some of the actual things, and this is very, very latest. It's a press release on 15 June 2016. Where Indian Revenue Secretary Dr. Hasmukh Adia and Switzerland State Secretary of International Financial Matters met and agreed to move towards an early agreement for implementation of Effective Agreement for Exchange of Information, AEOI, Agreement for Exchange of Information between the two countries. It was decided that experts of both the countries will meet before mid-September 2016 to further discuss the modalities for the reciprocal bilateral implementation of the AEOI between India and Switzerland with a view to reaching an agreement at the earliest, possibly by the end of the year. Look at the urgency here. Once this agreement is signed, it will be possible for India to receive from 2018 financial information of accounts held by all Indian residents of Switzerland on automatic basis. This is the power of Article 26. This is what the government is trying to do. It has done with Mauritius, it has done with all the tax havens, now it is behind Switzerland and this will happen. Look at this. This came last week. In at least 400 cases of Indians with deposits in HSBC, Geneva, the details of which were received from the French government in 2011, the income tax authorities have unearthed undisclosed income of 8,000 crores, the highest disclosure ever from offshore bank accounts, and raised a tax demand of about 5,300 crores against such account holders till 31st March 2016, according to an IT assessment report. These 400 cases were asked under Article 26 from the French authorities. So you have now a clear cause and effect of things happening under this article. Based on another set of information disclosed in 2013 on the website of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, like you had the Panama leaks recently, a Washington-based organization, IT officials have detected undisclosed income of 5,000 crores in foreign bank accounts allegedly linked to 700 Indians. Now this totally makes up to about 10,000 crores or about 13,000 crores. Now you look at the kind of effect this article is having and look at the amount of data and look at the amount of power you can get when you get information from the overseas people. Today you have the Black Money Act which has got enacted. Your ITR forms have been now designed to show and report income, the overseas assets held. These are all moving towards this information. The government wants a lot of information from you. Under the Black Money Act, if you get under Article 26, the person can be prosecuted under the Black Money Act. So that is the kind of interaction that Article 26 is having. According to me, today in the world, the most relevant article is Article 26 because governments all over the world are trying to unearth black money, and it is through Article 26 that they will force other governments to part with financial information. And only then they can have these kind of tax demands being raised and black money being unearthed.
So to what extent competent authority in India can use Article 26 to locate the real owners of participatory notes, offshore derivative instruments, which
real owners of participatory notes?
Yeah, because I mean, if participatory notes are bought and sold, I mean.
So in their information request, they will specifically ask for all this information. They will explain why that is relevant for them. And if they are asking to these countries now where the exchange of information is, then these countries will have to give the owners' names of the participatory notes as per the data available with them. So if you have in Mauritius all the PN registered, all the names of the PN holders, Mauritius will have to give that information to India. But if Mauritius does not have the information, then you can't do anything.
No, so what SEBI has done that they have made it mandated for FPI to submit the information on the monthly level. the older ownership
That is whatever is there within India.
within.
This is under Article 26, what you can get from Mauritius. Well, a lot of the PN notes came from the Mauritius route.
Correct.
Now after this, after the May 2016, they will start asking for information. And just before I conclude, I had this beautiful case of Ram Jethmalani versus Union of India. I would suggest all of you can just please look up into it. It is not an income tax case law, it's a writ petition filed by Ram Jethmalani. This was the 2011 when the UPA government was there. That time the government received he made an assertion there were a lot of Indian residents generating black money. That time the Indian government had received a certain name of the bank account holders from a principality called Liechtenstein from Germany. Same non-sovereign jurisdiction, tax haven under Germany. The petitioner sought disclosure of various documents by the government of India containing the names and the bank particulars relating to various bank accounts of Indian citizens who had generated unaccounted money through unlawful activities. The government said they have records such information under the DTA between India and Germany. Article 26 prohibits the government from disclosing such names with respect to the bank accounts of petitioners, even in the context of ongoing proceedings before the court. The government refused to divulge the names. The Supreme Court ruled, and this is a very important ruling. Now, this is not anything under the Income Tax Act. This was just a public interest litigation which was filed for the black money. And they were compelling disclosure. When they are compelling disclosure, the government sought refuge under the Article 26. They said, what is information under Article 26? Whether the data in possession of the government falls within the ambit of information under Article 26, it was held that the agreement is with regard to various issues that crop up with respect to German and Indian citizens' liability to pay taxes to Germany and or India. So they said yes, it is relevant. It does not even remotely touch upon information regarding Indian citizens' bank account in the Liechtenstein that Germany secures and shares. They have no bearing upon the matters that are covered by the DTA between the two countries. So they said, Germany or whatever you want, I will give. Now, but Germany cannot go to Liechtenstein and take that bank account details and give it to you. In fact, the information that is referred to in Article 26 is that which is necessary for carrying out the purposes of this agreement. So if you go back to Article 26(1), the information what you want is only for what is covered within the agreement. The information sought does not fall within the ambit of Article 26 of the German DTA because it is from the bank account holder of Liechtenstein. If it was Germany bank account holder, Germany could have done. It does not cover the non-sovereign jurisdiction. Secrecy of information. Whether, as per the assertion of the government, is there a bar of secrecy? So on this they said that there is no bar of secrecy, the information can be disclosed. Even though, so they said anyway we have ruled out that that information is not falling within 26, but we will still tell you whether it can be shown here. They said there is no absolute bar of secrecy under 26. Instead, the agreement provides that information may be disclosed in public court proceedings where the instant proceedings are. So if you look at Article 26(3), they have said that information, or 26(2), where they have said it should be a secret, it should be only given to people who are charged with investigating that, or it can be shown as, it can be put as part of public court proceedings. So Ram Jethmalani said, well, I have filed a writ petition, it's a public court proceeding. I want the information. Because Article 26 is saying public court proceedings. Whether public court proceedings covers this kind of public court proceedings not connected with income tax. They said yes, it covers. Technically, going by the wordings, there is no absolute bar on secrecy, it covers.
Sorry to interrupt you. In Liechtenstein, what happened was the German government discovered that German nationals are holding secret account license. So they wanted the information, and license did not give the information to German government. And what they did was they employed a private fellow and created some break and got the information like that, and which contains some Indian names. And it was passed on to the government of India, but government did not take any use.
So in the Indian sense, what had happened was that the information had come through not through the official route. It had come through two people who had illegally passed on the information.
In fact, government, I think German government realized about 800 million euros as the taxes.
So that they will anyway, see all these European countries also now, everybody is not having any money. So they are all going behind this black fellow, this black money. So what India has been doing for the past 15 years, today the entire Europe is going to do. They are going to go and attack all these tax havens and all this, they pay, bribe, cat hold of the information. Then they will go back under the exchange of information and they say, now I have information, now you have to share compulsorily. Why they refuse to give is because you have not a very good, effective exchange of information mechanism today available.
No, basically, this secrecy is the bread and butter of the business.
Which is what now they are trying to do away with that war. So, they said public court proceeding means under Article 26(1) the information has to be disclosed. However, I have not put it here, but then they went on under Article 19(1) and there is a right of privacy that will override this. When you are investigating a case, you have got 100 people ka name. You can't disclose that. It is a violation of Article 19(1). Out of the 100 people, 0 amount of people who are the actual people who have committed any crime, investigate them, then you can make their name public. But somebody who is under investigation is still entitled to the protection of privacy. That was the basic idea here. So, I'm just saying that exchange of information, there has been a lot of political posturing, a lot of international need, a lot of community. In fact, the entire BEPS project has started because of the tax evasion. So, for all of us professionals, the 26th article we have to remember. We have to remember 26.3 what are the limitations, 26.4 what are the possibilities which are given, what are the duties when you receive an article under Article 26.2, what is the level of confidentiality you have to maintain, whether you can share it with third countries. There are major international obligations. Any country, when they share information with you, they will not do it unconditionally. They will give a list of conditions that this information they are giving you have to be very careful with it, because the entire Western world is very, very touchy about sharing private information. And from a political perspective, they view the Asian countries with distrust, especially Thailand, China and India, where they perceive that there is no effective mechanism of the government to retain the secrecy. The government machinery is so lax, the information tends to leak out. Therefore, they have tried everything in their book not to give information to India. So, Article 26 stands at that junction where the political pressure and the fiscal evasion considerations are always in a seesaw mode. And it is through this article, if you have to go and adjudicate under the International Court of Law, International Court of Arbitration, at least it is arming India with the power to do it. So that is the kind of importance which Article 26 has. I am not having the time to complete Article 27, but I think that Article 27, there is nothing which is very major. It is just assistance in collection of taxes. They have defined what kind of taxes, how do you assess, and again government to government level request, things like this. I think that is something which, if we just understand on a general basis by the reading of the article, there is not much which we need to do. Unlike map and exchange of information, which we need to understand a lot of practical aspects. Then Article 27 is something which is more routine. So I think I will take that liberty of passing that by. I wanted to spend some quality time on 25 and 26. I hope that this has been relevant, and I would be happy to take some questions. Thank you all for the patient hearing. Thank you.
Basically, the secrecy is the bread and butter for this business, for all this bands, whatever it is we call it.
Correct.
Even a country like US, probably last about Swiss bank is refusing the gift.
Correct.
So the question is whether will we be able to get an authentic information from all these people? With this practical question, nothing to do with this 25 days.
No, see, basically, Switzerland has now under international pressure, they have agreed to amend their and dilute their banking secrecy laws. The issue is not whether the information will be authentic or not. The issue is whether give the information or not to give the information. But once if they have agreed to give the information, then they cannot give you wrong information. The idea is to get them to give.
So is it a time given to the other party to take alternative actions?
The other party, see, today you have a US citizen who has a Swiss bank account in the Switzerland, for example. You have gone to the Switzerland authority, they have refused. Now what you can do? You can only take other alternative arguments that are available to you under your domestic law. Right? So if you catch hold of that fellow somewhere, or if he is sitting in some UK, you have an extradition treaty with UK, you tell him to extradite him. Those things are all possible. But if Swiss has refused to give under the secrecy law of their bank, you can't attack the country and get the information. That so that you have to respect. Now what you can do is, as an international community, you come together, put the pressure on them and say we will isolate you in international community if you don't change the law. So it is more of putting a international political pressure for them to amend the law. But legally, you can't do anything.
And second thing is refusal for giving the information. Can it be on ground of national security?
Yes, it can. Okay.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, I would just like to thank everybody for their patient hearing. Thank you.
So I should thank Rishi Harlalka for an excellent presentation. We thought Article 25, 26, 27 we may not go beyond 1 hour, but I think even 3 hours may not be sufficient for Rishi to do all these things. We really thank you, sir, because he came in as a substitution for one of the other speaker. And I thought 1.5 hours, what we also thought 25, 26, 27 may not be so much to discuss, but the way he went in, explained each and every provision, it was really, we learned a lot of things, Rishi. Today, we didn't know that so many things were there in 25, 26, 27. So usually we will not go and see those articles. When we deal with only 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, something like that, where we practically do. So, as he said today, because of this 26 BEPS action plan has come, and it's something like revolutionize the entire international tax understanding itself. So, once it comes, probably in December is what the G20 nations are planning to sign and implement. So when it comes, it revolutionizes the entire international taxation. Whatever we have read, we have to unlearn and start reading the international taxes from the beginning probably. And maybe next year we can have a series of programs innovating Rishi for all those things. So I thank all of you for being here and really getting a lot of information on these topics. We are left with a few more articles because this is a series of programs you people are attending. We are in the fag end almost more from 1 year we are doing this.
Okay.
So next to, I think you also came for, I think Article 6 you presented, if I remember correctly, on immovable property. So the other two classes are there. We had next session on 16th of July, but because of this state level conference, it has been postponed to 23rd July. So 23rd July, Subramanian, I think, from your office. Shashi. What is his full name?
Shashi Shekhar Chogle.
So Mr. Shashi Shekhar Chogle from his office only is covering. I can request him to tell him to cover this Article 28 also briefly.
Okay.
So that he can go from that one. So with this we conclude this meeting. We will meet again on this particular topic on 23rd of July. Good night.